On January 31st, we ended the first full month of the new year, 2025. The Thrift Savings Plan has done really well the last 2 years. As those who follow their investments in the TSP, you probably know, but just as a reminder of how good it's done, here's what happened. In 2023, the C fund returned 26% and the S fund returned 25%. That was an outstanding year, followed by another outstanding year in 2024. The C fund had 25% return, and the S fund had a 17% return. Even the I fund, which often doesn't do as well as the other core stock funds, returned 4.27%. For comparison, the G fund returned 4.4% in 2024. So what happened in the first month of the new year? Well, you're off to a very good start because for the core stock funds, the C fund in January returned 2.78%, and for the 12-month return, 26.3%. S fund, 4.9, almost 5% return, and the 12-month return, 25.8%. So the stock market is off to a good year. There's always, at the beginning of a new administration, some questions, some concerns, what policies are going to be new, what's different, how will these affect the stock market? One of the primary concerns that has come about by investors with regard to the Trump administration is tariffs. What tariffs are going to be imposed? And we know there are some. In fact, after the stock market closed, new tariffs were imposed on a couple of countries. Will this impact inflation? If it does, obviously that impacts inflation rates, which impacts stock market prices. Stocks don't like a lot of high inflation. If the inflation rate goes up, the stock prices tend to go down. But so far in January, you're off to a very good start. So we'll hope that this keeps up and you have the same kind of year in 2025 that we had for the last 2 years in the TSP. One of the things that happens with the TSP, and I've taken an interest in following this just because the stock market goes up, it goes down. That's just the nature of it. It always has, it always will. It's not a risk-free investment. Now, some people say that the G fund is the only fund they want to invest in because it's the safest. And it is, in the sense that the G fund doesn't go down. The S fund, the C fund, the I fund, the core TSP stock funds, they go up, they can go up fast. They can also drop fast. And that's part of being in the stock market. The TSP is continuing to grow. Just in the last year, as an example, right now, at the end of December, the total TSP assets were $963 billion. So by comparison, at the end of the previous year, in December, TSP assets were $849 billion. So it's gone from $849 to $963. The largest 401k type plan in the country is continuing to grow. And as mentioned earlier, your assets are growing very well, especially those who invested in the C and S stock funds, because we've been in a bull market for a couple of years. One of the questions that sometimes arises is how much do TSP investors trade in stocks? Do they react differently if there's a bull market or a bear market? And the answer is they do. So we looked at the last couple of these types of markets just to see what the differences were. We're currently in a bull market and have been. At the end of 2022, just as a comparison, there were $240 billion in the G fund. At the end of 2024, there were almost $228 billion in the G fund. So investors were investing less in the G fund, which is thought of, because it is, the safest fund in the TSP. It doesn't go down. It's only available to federal employees in this TSP plan. But as more money was being made in the stock funds, people started transferring money or investing their new money into these stock funds, which makes sense. So for comparison, at the end of 22, the C fund had $210 billion. At the end of 24, it had $348 billion. So a difference of $138 billion. That's throughout this bull market, which is still going on. And one of the questions is when it will end. Nobody can tell you that. We just don't know. There's no automatic figure or divine intervention that's going to tell you when to start trading and expecting the stocks to go down. I don't know. You don't know. Even professional traders can guess. They have models they look at, but they're often wrong. For comparison, how did TSP investors react in a bear market? The last one I looked at from December 31st, 2021 through October 31st, 2022. That's pretty close to the length of that bear market. At the start of that, the TSP G fund had about $211 billion. At the end of that, the G fund had almost $30 billion, or $240 billion, an increase of about $30 billion. The C fund lost in that same period of time roughly $57 billion. So investors, as the bear market went on, put more money in the G fund. Now, what we don't know is how many of these got it right. My guess is nobody can get it right because you have to do it twice. You have to know this market is about to end and another one's going to start. And when does the new bear market or the new bull market change? You don't know. If you happen to get it right, you made a lot of money. Fed Smith obviously doesn't tell people how to invest. We're not financial advisors. There are some excellent financial advisors around that will help you. A lot of times what these folks will say is set up a portfolio, follow your plan, and don't try to guess the market because in the long run, it doesn't work out. The G fund is by far the safest. And what tends to happen is as people get close to retirement or in retirement, they don't want to take the risk. They don't have 20 or 30 years for any losses to build back up. Younger investors, when you look at the life cycle funds, those are primarily in stocks. The G fund is not in stocks at all. So one is safer, one is more risky, one will give you more money, profits over the long term, but you might lose money in the short term. So you pay your money and you take your chances. 2025 is off to a very good month for the TSP. We hope it continues. Fed Smith publishes the results at the end of each month and even throughout the month for those who want to keep up with their returns on a daily or monthly basis. We appreciate you listening to this video. We hope it's helpful and we wish you the best of luck. If you want to look at more detail, check out the Fed Smith website at fedsmith.com. We have articles there on the TSP that will provide more information, and some of the charts that I mentioned here, some of the data is in that article. Thank you for listening.